Now, years ago in the UK, in the 2015 general election, when I was up against the other party leaders, we were talking about housing shortages. And I said to the other people, I said, do you think mass immigration and a rocketing population might be affecting housing in the United Kingdom? Oh, no, 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 they said. They couldn't see the link. Well, I think nowadays people are beginning to see that. And I'm joined by Jonathan Portes, Professor of Economics and Public Policy at King's College London. And Jonathan, the report out today, published in the Times, suggesting that for many young people living in our big cities, the rent is as much as 40% of their disposable income. This is a massive social problem, isn't it?
That's absolutely right. Housing affordability has got much worse. We simply have not increased the number of houses, particularly in the places where people want to live and where the jobs are, in London in particular, also in the cities where you have rapidly growing firms, places like Cambridge and Oxford, for example. And to make housing more affordable for young people, we need to build more houses. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but we're caught in this extraordinary position where net migration is running at hundreds of thousands every year. We're not even building enough homes to cope with current levels of migration in the year to come, let alone the enormous backlog. So where do we go with this?
Well, I think there's a general consensus that the reason, and remember, lots of countries have high levels of immigration. Lots of countries don't have the same type of housing crisis we have. And indeed, some places in the US, which have high levels of immigration and rapid population growth, Houston, for example, have actually managed to bring house prices and rents down by building houses. The problem in the UK is fundamentally twofold. First of all, and most important, a very restrictive housing and planning system that doesn't let people build houses. And second, of course, that the government hasn't built any social housing for the best part of 30 years to speak of.
Yeah, this point about social housing is something that I hear more and more going around the country. Something like 1.25 million people on the waiting lists for social housing. Surely that's something that government, working with some of the big developers, surely that's something that we could deal with pretty quickly.
Absolutely, we could deal with it if there's the political will. The fact is politicians, and I think this is true of all parties, have failed to have that political will over the last, as I say, it's not just this government who've made it worse, but that was also true to some extent over the last government. There just isn't the political will to get together, to free up the land that you need, to put in the investment, to allow councils to borrow money to build houses, and to drive that through, sometimes in the face of local opposition, particularly from people, from NIMBYs, as it were, people who don't want building in their neighbourhood.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't see this getting better anytime soon. Jonathan Portes, thank you for joining me again on the programme.
Thank you.
Now, one of the elements here, of course, that is affecting housing is that we've got so many people coming into the country across the English Channel in the backs of lorries, coming in illegally, and we're having to house them. We've been putting them in hotels. The government have been taking up private apartments. The small town of Millom up in Cumbria now faces a migrant hotel coming into their town. Local opposition to this is very, very strong indeed. GBNews' Sophie Reefer went to Millom and spoke to the town council.
Obviously, this isn't just an issue in Millom. What are your thoughts on the impact of asylum seekers on the housing crisis, not just here, but countrywide?
Well, I can only talk about Millom, and Millom has problems anyway, in that we lost a large social housing estate that was demolished some 5 years ago, never been replaced. We've got huge shortages of private rented accommodation. One of the local estate agents has got 110 people on a list looking for rented houses in Millom. And then to take such a number out of that marketplace and turn them into HMOs that would normally have ended up either as first-time buyer houses or rented accommodation, it just adds to that problem.
And that's one of the things that really makes people angry. I get people write to me, say, my son and his wife are on the waiting list for social housing. They're living with us. goodness knows how long it's going to be before they get the opportunity, and yet people pay a trafficker to come across the English Channel and they're housed in a 4-star hotel or a private apartment. It is leading to great resentment, a sense of unfairness right across the country, and I think it's deeper, more widespread, and held with more conviction than virtually anybody in Westminster genuinely understands.